Hey, Jules Blessed Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. So, people, I am exhausted, and that is just like straight up. We adopted Harley, which, if you've been following me, I mentioned was a Belgium draft horse that we had imported from Texas. But hey, I imported my husband from Texas, so it's all good. But anyway, Harley arrived after midnight last night, and then we were up until easily 1:30 just trying to get her settled in. So, of course, I had to get up and get on with school today, so I am super tired. I did not take any pictures yet. I didn't want Harley to be pressured and think that I was going to make her perform in her first 24 hours here. Let's be fair. Sadly, our other 3 rescued horses were less than lovely. They were bratty to her, and I was like, you do not want a 2,000-pound Belgian draft horse to get her dander up, okay? Let's not be going that direction. Anyway, we'll have to see. She's already part of the family, that's straight up. And she's hilarious. Oh my gosh, like I'm so sorry for her, irritated skin and the sores that she has and her ribs showing. Are you kidding me? Like we're going to have to put a lot of weight on her. And then her one floppy ear, which has to have a backstory. I pray that it wasn't abuse. But she is perfectly darling, and we will happily love her. All right, so I'll get back to you on that. So at the same time, I was saying that I wanted to follow the 14 stations of the cross that Jesus dared to go through on his way to Calvary, which we're coming right up on, right? Because Easter is coming right up. And of course, that is the passion of Jesus' death and resurrection. And so we are just simply on day 2. And for day 2, Jesus had to bear his cross, okay? And I happen to know that by heart. It was bearing the cross for himself. He went forth to the place called the skull, in Hebrew, Golgotha. And that's John chapter 19, verse 1. Go, Julie. I've been memorizing that because of the rosary, and that's one of the sorrowful mysteries. For real. Anyway, though, God bless him 1,000 times. So how does that relate to our eating and our disordered eating? Well, I really believe people who have disordered eating most certainly bear a cross. It's a very difficult one. There is a burden when, unlike those that I refer to as normies, simply eat to live. They don't live to eat. They don't think about food outside of the time to eat. They don't obsess about food. I mean, my obsession becomes so great that I can't even hear what people are saying around me. Like I'm nodding and smiling and I'm probably even responding, but my head is just going crazy, focused on whatever it is, whatever food I'm obsessing about. My ability to pout can rarely be matched by anyone when it's not the food I was hoping. I mean, my gosh, I become 3 years old. And it's interesting, in addiction, when you come from addiction, they often do say that you resort back to that age when whatever trauma it was happened. And literally at 3 years old, I was pouting over my piece of cake not being big enough, or going with an older sibling to the store and stealing, whatever treat that was, and certainly stealing cookies out of my Aunt Kay's cookie jar. And it was already a problem for me, and I can look 3 years old very quickly. I'm not kidding. Like, it's crazy how fast I transform, and people go, how old are you right now, Juliana? And what is the problem? Oh, God, food, darn it. All right, so I would like to share this article, 10 Food Addiction Signs, from addictions.com. Can you relate at all? Again, this may be the cross you bear. It may not. It absolutely is the one I bear. And though I absolutely understand that God does not give us a cross greater than what we can bear, it's still a bummer, right? It's still such a bummer. And even though it's arrested at times, as I just suggested, my 80 vegan days around the world, when it's not, it is a very challenging time. And I pray for the courage to once again pick up that cross and bear that cross, because I've certainly dropped it in the last couple of days, right? As I said. And I need to pick it up and just know that it's the better way to live in health, in health, in health. Okay, so it reads, with food being a daily requirement for health and well-being, it's hard to equate this most basic of necessities with addiction. I don't agree in the sense that anyone who certainly is in like Overeaters Anonymous versus Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, or those people can put their addiction aside and still live. It is something we have to approach every single day, absolutely. And there's no doubt that the obsessive mind is where the addictive part comes from. So it says, when it comes to assigning an official diagnosis or label to excessive food consumption, the scientific medical jury is still out. Like, they don't know if they can actually say that. It's gotten better. I don't know what year this was written. 2018. So even in the last 2.5 years, their understanding has become greater on how some people's chemical makeup responds to food differently than others. So in spite of this indecision, obesity rates continue to climb from year to year as American lifestyles become increasingly hectic and stress-filled. How about the standard American diet, which is absolutely designed to make you addicted, and all of the chemicals they put in it is a huge part of that problem. Are you kidding me? All one has to do is compare the criteria for addiction in general to the behaviors of someone who struggles with limiting his or her food intake, and the answer becomes clear. Food addiction signs pretty much mirror drug and alcohol addiction signs, with the same types of detrimental effects arising from both lifestyles. I so agree. According to the Columbia Health, which is a hyperlink, the 10 food addiction signs bear a near identical resemblance to addiction signs for drugs, alcohol, gambling, and sex. If you're wondering whether you or someone you know may be addicted to food, here are 10 food addiction signs to watch out for. Number 1, improved moods. Someone who goes from being irritable and tired to cheerful and energetic after eating a favorite pastry or snack may be exhibiting a food addiction sign. Not unlike drugs or alcohol, certain food triggers the release of endorphin or feel-good chemicals in the brain, right up until you crash, right? But yes, in the moment. Number 2, food favorites. Foods high in sugar, salt, and fat have a particularly strong effect on brain chemical processes and blood sugar levels. These physical effects actually trigger cravings for more of the same types of food. Yeah, I was never a salt girl, right? Certainly never a meat or savory type person. Always sugar, 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 sugar. As long as I don't provoke that, I'm good to go. It's so interesting. I can eat very mellow, satiating, healthy food. But if I trigger those things, I am in trouble. Even salt to a small extent, but it's just not my go-to. Okay, isolative behaviors. So yes, passing up social and professional activities in order to hide an out-of-control appetite means spending less and less time engaged with others. Oh, I so get that. I can't even talk about the number of times I lied my head off, made up every single excuse just to isolate and hide and just be controlled by food, right? I mean, I'm, of course, engaged with a husband who also had a food eating problem. So luckily, we were comfortable. I guess it's the only threesome I ever did in my life. Do not ask where that came from. But yes, the 3 of us. So interesting. Yeah, to be fair, when I got married, we included God and the Holy Spirit in all of our vows. But for much of my relationship, it was supplanted with food. Me, my husband, and food. All right. Unable to reduce food intake. Someone who has tried repeatedly to cut back on certain foods and failed each time may be experiencing a classic food addiction sign. People addicted to drugs and alcohol often go through the same struggle. That's super interesting because I think about how people, will reduce the quantity of food that they eat, obviously, in hopes of losing weight or whatever. Well, because I went with raw vegan, which allows for really healthy quantities of food, which I joke is being enough for a small country, I didn't have to change my mindset to smaller quantities. I just replaced them with healthy, calorie dense food. Unfortunately, with that, is that when I do tend to falter, I go right back to the original quantity that I used to consume. And that's really unfortunate. I know that to be true with people who suddenly go back to whatever it is, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol or whatever. And unfortunately, they go back to the quantity that they were at their peak with, which is why when they finally go back, they accidentally OD and kill themselves. Again, I say food is a form of a death, of course, but sadly, a very slow one, a slow, painful one. But yeah, I accidentally go with those big quantities and my stomach will let me. Is it as comfortable as fruit and vegetables? By no means. But can I do it? I've proven it, unfortunately, too many times. All right. Excess amounts of time spent eating and getting more food. Oh, God, right? Going back to that darn buffet 2,000 times. When time spent eating and seeking out food cuts into work and family life, this food addiction sign points to the start of a new lifestyle that centers around food. Again, as a raw vegan, I certainly spend a great amount of time consuming whatever that meal is because it takes time to chomp and it takes time to prep and everything. And ideally, it's healthy. But when I flip to my sicker self, it so readily fills in comfortably in the same gap. Again, whether it's a mass quantity or whether it's time consuming that food. I didn't think about that before this. Number 6, impaired ability to function. Straight up. After so many donuts and potato chips, the body starts to grow sluggish from working so hard to digest these foods with little to no nutritional benefit in return. Under these conditions, it becomes increasingly harder to function at work, at home, or even out with friends. I was joking about the threesome thing, and forgive me if that offended you, but I was really thinking about food as a mistress in so many ways. And even now, okay, so for some reason, and it's probably just avoiding whatever's going on in my life, and I've got a lot of very difficult things going on right now, I'm obsessing in my mind about food, and everything is an interruption. Everyone is in my way. Why does my husband mean more time? Why do my animals? Why is the phone ringing? Why did my mother just call? Food is a very jealous lover, and it doesn't like to, share any time with anyone. It becomes all-encompassing. That is why I know it's an addiction. I know that to be my experience. Can you relate at all? Okay, continuing despite negative consequences. Hello, 330 plus pounds. High acid reflux to the point of esophageal ulcers, right? All of the things. Thyroid. Don't tell me. Kidney disease. Asthma through the roof. Hi. So someone suffering from food addiction will place relationships at risk, as well as his or her overall health, in order to engage in ongoing eating behaviors. Hi, eating out of the trash. Hello, going into neighborhoods that I don't belong in so that no one will see me while I purchase whatever. Seriously, burning my tongue on frozen ice cream. Even worse, of frozen pie, right? Who can wait for it to defrost? Number 8, eating increasing amounts of food over time. Over time, someone who eats as a way to feel better will need to eat increasingly larger amounts of food in order to experience the same high effect. This is another classic food addiction sign. So, yes. Or that nothing is satisfying. That you could go through every cupboard, every part of the fridge, every, everywhere. You can go to 5 different fast food places, and by you, I mean me. I shared the story before where I used to binge all day through movie hopping, through 6 hours of movies, and then when they did a shift change, drive to another theater and do the night for 6 more hours just to binge on all the food. Like, none is ever enough. Withdrawal symptoms. Withdrawal symptoms take the form of agitation, anxiety, or depression when a person tries to cut back to certain foods or excludes them from their diet. Understatement of the year. I so get that. And number 10, unable to control portion size. Loss of control applies as a food addiction sign, just as it applies for drugs and alcohol. Once a person starts eating, he or she cannot stop. I used to joke when I was drinking about, and not even joke, I used to proclaim that I could either drink everybody under the table until we ran out of booze, until we, passed out. Like, I just had no quitting sense. And it's the same thing. If I get into foods that trigger me, I'm completely screwed. And even if I get my mindset around how horrifically my stomach is killing me and how sick I feel, because I promised I would never be bulimic and be throwing up again, it's just a flip of a switch in my mind to suddenly find more space and fit in more of the toxic waste. It's so unfair. Not unfair, unfortunate. I don't feel like a victim. It's just my truth. So will God help me bear that cross? Well, I consciously know that I've had trouble with food since I was 3 years old. I'm 55. So I guess he's been helping me bear my cross for 52 years. Can only imagine I'll go on for another. But of course, he's given me the tools like vegan and of course, raw vegan, to live the better way. Because a moment ago, before I faltered with my food a couple days ago, this was not my ongoing obsession. And if I had to think about it, like, what is it that's throwing me into such a tizzy? Part of it is, of course, the COVID. And what I mean by that is everybody encouraging me to get the vaccine, right? And of course, I'm a teacher. Of course, I have children coming into the classroom very soon. Whatever they have in their home is going to come into my classroom, right? I can wear my mask. I can wear 2 masks if I want. They even have a face shield. I can wash my hands. I can stay. It was 6 feet apart. Suddenly it was 3 feet apart. And now they're back to like 2. Well, unless we're sitting in one another's lap. Isn't that just regular seating per kid? And does that mean it'll be more than 14 kids coming back? I don't know. But all of a sudden, I started freaking out about that. Will food fix that stress? Absolutely not. But did I seemingly choose food in hopes of it? I guess. It's a very old behavior for me to seek answers in food. What else happened? A bunch of things. I've got a bunch of little things coming at me. But food will never be my answer. I know that. But because I dared to go there, now I'm in the aftermath. And the aftermath is insanity. I was one of those people who shook my leg a lot, right? Starting in like my junior year of high school, where I'd just shake my leg all the time. And sometimes both legs. And people would be like, I know we're in California, but is that an earthquake? No, it's just me freaking out. So my husband and I were at a light. And all of a sudden Dale's like, oh my gosh, Juliana, it's my flippin' leg. Okay, I'm driving and we've stopped at the light for a moment and my leg is going a mile a minute. This is an old behavior for me where I am not present. I want to be everywhere but here, right? Anyway, I'm going through something. Prayers welcome. But I'm going to include this in the description of the video. Let's go over it one more time. Improved moods because of the food. Food favorites, can't live without those. Isolative behaviors, so to isolate, unable to reduce your food intake, excess amounts of time spending eating and getting more food, impaired ability to function, continuing to eat despite negative consequences, eating increasing amounts of food over time, withdrawal symptoms, and unable to control portion sizes. Can you relate? All right, my friends, again, stationing the cross number 2, bearing that cross for yourself, but with the benefit of God, which means we can do anything. Like if you like, join us if you haven't, subscribe. Let me know in the comments below how I may support you. And until we talk again, best of all, know there are choices in this life that serve us. Engaging in the food isn't one of them. And know that you're blessed.